Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming today. I think it's important that we start by a land acknowledgement. So I'd like to acknowledge we're on the traditional and unceded territory of the Syilx Okanagan people. I have driven by this lumber mill, I don't know, 100, 200 times, going to Vancouver, going to Penticton. I've never been inside. It is unbelievable in there. You see a blend of old school moving wood around to technology that's maximizing every piece of the lumber that goes through there. It's pretty incredible. This mill is an economic driver for this region, and it provides hundreds of good paying jobs for the people of this community. Today, the Prime Minister will announce tangible supports for the softwood lumber industry for British Columbia and Canada that really help us get through the trade situation we're going on with the U.S. I think as important as the tangible things the Prime Minister will announce is the people that showed up here to do the announcement. The Prime Minister, the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, we are paying attention to this because this really matters to us, the people who work here, and to Canada and Canadians. So with that, to do the heavy lifting, I want to bring to the podium the 24th Prime Minister of Canada, Prime Minister Mark Carney.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Minister Hodgson, for joining us. And let me thank Nick and the team here at Gorman Brothers for showing us around this incredible facility, but more importantly, giving us a window into the ecosystem that Gorman is part of. An ecosystem that spans this great province, that reaches out to customers in Canada, the United States, around the world, and provides tremendous value to those customers, and does so because it's built on values of this company. So it couldn't be more thrilled to be here on this important day for this industry. Now, before we begin, and as the sun beats down on my bald head, I'm reminded of the challenges, in all seriousness, the challenges that we're facing with the wildfires here in British Columbia and across Canada. And we've just seen recently fires down the road in the Okanagan. And I want to express our deep gratitude to the firefighters and the first responders who are on the front lines of combating these fires in the Okanagan, in British Columbia, and across our great country. And I also want to thank the Canadian Armed Forces because in support of those efforts, hundreds, thousands of Canadian Armed Forces personnel across Canada have been involved, including to evacuate thousands of people in danger. And we will continue to work closely with communities, the provinces, the territories to protect lives and homes and businesses. Now, Steve's driven by here a couple hundred times. I've driven through here countless times. I can't count to 200 like Steve, but countless times as a kid, spending summer vacations in the Okanagan. This was always the highlight. But a lot has changed since then. There's a bit less fruit, less farming, more grapes, more golf, a myriad of new businesses sprouting up from aerospace to artificial intelligence and health sciences. But there are also a few constants. The good weather, the great people, and despite perils ranging from pine beetles to protectionism, the BC interior remains home to a world-leading softwood lumber industry. Yeah, because of these people. Yeah. And Gorman Brothers embodies the spirit of that industry and really the very best of Canada. Resilient, ambitious, dynamic. What began over 75 years ago with two brothers adapting from challenges in the orchards, building fruit boxes, has evolved into this thriving company with hundreds of highly skilled employees, and a company, as I said a moment ago, that supports an ecosystem that spans this province and builds the world. Canada was literally built with our forests and by workers such as those behind me. Indigenous peoples relied on our forests for their communities, for their transportation, for their artistic expression. Early settlers built our economy on lumber, literally built our economy on lumber, supplying the British Empire before shifting exports to a growing market in the United States. Each summer, thousands of university and college students help pay their tuition by planting trees. The forest industry is a pillar of the Canadian economy. It supports 200,000 jobs across the country, contributes more than $20 billion directly to our GDP. It's the economic backbone of nearly 300 rural, Indigenous, and northern communities, many of them right here in British Columbia. Aujourd'hui, le Canada est le deuxième producteur mondial de bois d'œuvre. Nous fournissons 85% des importations américaines et représentons environ un quart du marché américain. Et ce, malgré des décennies des menaces commerciales provenant de l'autre côté de la frontière. Over the course of the last 4 decades, the United States has alternated between confrontation and collaboration, frequently applying unfounded, countervailing, and anti-dumping duties against Canadian softwood, and then signing formal agreements that benefited businesses, workers, and homeowners on both sides of the border. Let's be clear. Canada does not dump lumber into the United States, and we will continue to make the case that these current and proposed duties are unjustified. Canada is a vital supplier to our southern neighbor. We represent around a quarter of the U.S. market, and we help keep down costs of American homes while improving their quality. But we're in a situation now where the disputes around softwood lumber are part of a bigger picture. American trade pressures have intensified and broadened. And the U.S. is in the process of fundamentally changing all of its trading relationships. In a series of recent agreements, America is in effect charging for access to its economy through a combination of higher baseline tariffs, unilateral trade liberalization by its partners, and new commitments to invest in the United States. We understand that. Overall, Canada is in a strong position. Despite our size, Canada is already the second largest foreign investor in the United States. Many of our companies are essential to the complex supply chains that drive American competitiveness. And the commitment of the United States to the core of CUSMA, reaffirmed again last week, means that the average U.S. tariff rate on Canadian goods remains one of its lowest. And over 85% of Canada-U.S. trade continues to be tariff-free in both directions. To be clear, Canada remains committed to CUSMA for the stability and the prosperity it provides on both sides of the border, and will continue to engage in constructive trade negotiations with the United States in the pursuit of the best deal for both sides. And I'll be speaking more about how we can reinforce these commitments in short order. But despite our advantages, certain of our major Canadian industries are being severely impacted by U.S. trade. These strategic sectors include autos, steel, aluminum, copper, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and of course, softwood lumber. So while we'll continue to work with the United States on the many mutually beneficial opportunities that we share in trade and investment, it is clear that we cannot count or fully rely on what has been our most valued trading relationship for our prosperity. And that's why we're increasingly focused on building our strength at home and finding new opportunities for Canadian companies and workers abroad. Our government's new comprehensive industrial strategy will help our companies retool and reinvest to protect Canadian jobs, to build Canadian competitiveness, and to meet growing demands in Canada while developing international opportunities wherever free trade is a commitment, not a condition. 2 weeks ago, I announced the first of the elements of that new strategy with a series of measures to support the transition in the Canadian steel industry. And of course, today here, I'm going to focus on how we can help transform our softwood lumber industry to compete in this tough new environment. And it starts from recognizing that 2/3 of Canadian lumber production and nearly 90% of Canadian lumber exports currently go to the United States, leaving us disproportionately exposed to their trade actions. This dependence creates costly uncertainty. It weakens our industry's ability to weather downturns. It makes lumber more expensive for builders here at home, and it foregoes enormous opportunities in fast-growing markets around the world. So to turn challenge into opportunity, with Minister Hodgson, Secretary of State Fuhr, today I'm announcing a series of new measures to help the softwood lumber industry pivot to a growing Canadian market and to the markets of reliable trading partners around the world. J'annonce aujourd'hui une série de nouvelles mesures pour aider l'industrie de bois d'œuvre à se tourner vers le marché canadien en pleine croissance et de nouveaux partenaires commerciaux fiables à travers le monde. The first pillar is to give our companies that need liquidity that liquidity in order to address immediate pressures. To do so, we'll provide up to $700 million in loan guarantees. This will ensure that forestry companies of all sizes have the competitive financing they need to maintain and restructure, if necessary, their operations during a period of profound transformation. Second, to make the softwood lumber industry more competitive for the long term, we will provide an additional $500 million, largely in grants and contributions to supercharge new product development and new market diversification. Products such as reinforced timber and low-carbon wood fiber-based insulation materials that are used in prefabricated and modular housing. These investments will increase domestic processing and value added, particularly as technology changes the way we build. This new funding will include initiatives to support Indigenous-led forestry business development and diversification, something that Gorman has stood behind for decades. Third, we will be our own best customer by relying more on Canadian lumber, Canadian softwood for Canadian projects. Canada's new government has a strong mandate to get big things built faster. That means millions of more homes, major new ports, new trade corridors, new energy projects. And as we build bigger and faster, we will build Canadian, prioritizing Canadian lumber, Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum in Canadian construction. Canada's new government is working to double the pace of new home building to almost 500,000 new units a year over the course of the next decade. That alone could double the use of Canadian softwood lumber in new residential construction, an increase of almost 2 billion board feet, and double the demand for structural panels, an increase of nearly 1 billion square feet. To help realize that potential, this fall, we will launch Build Canada Homes. Build Canada Homes will start by getting the government back in the business of building deeply affordable homes, and in the process, catalyze a new housing industry using Canadian technology, Canadian lumber, and Canadian workers. Core to Build Canada's Homes mandate will be to provide up to $25 billion in financing to innovative private sector home builders in Canada. For the deeply affordable homes that we finance and build, Build Canada Homes will catalyze bulk orders of off-site construction of prefabricated and modular homes, specifying the use of Canadian technologies and resources. This combination will create enormous sustained demand for Canadian lumber products. And it's just one example of the possibilities. Just a few hours drive from here in Castlegar, Kalsnikoff Mass Timber recently opened their 100,000 square foot mass timber prefabrication and modular facility, the first of its kind in North America. They're adding new products and services, including prefabricated wall panels, mass timber modules, and trusses designed and manufactured for construction efficiency. And of course, the impact of Build Canada homes can be and is being reinforced by provincial initiatives, including the modernization of building code regulations by British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec. This creates significant additional demand, going forward, for Canadian softwood lumber. As an example, again, here in BC, the increase in the size of buildings that can be constructed using encapsulated mass timber from 12 to 18 stories. Il existe d'énormes opportunités pour l'industrie de bois d'œuvre et les investissements que nous faisons aujourd'hui aideront ce secteur à les saisir de toutes les façons possibles. Au fur et à mesure que nous bâtirons ce pays, nous changerons le processus d'approvisionnement du gouvernement fédéral afin d'exiger que les entreprises qui ont des contrats avec le gouvernement fédéral utilisent le bois d'œuvre canadien. The fourth pillar is to launch new initiatives to deepen and diversify international markets for Canada's sustainably sourced forest products. These will include reinvigorated federal programs to market innovative, sustainable, high-quality wood products, such as in recent years, programs such as Canada Wood, which achieved many successes, including promoting wood-based construction to new segments in Asia. To build on this base, we'll promote the development of building codes in those countries and help to develop local building capacity with wood, combining them with sustained trade promotion for our products. In doing so, we'll emphasize that lumber is ecologically sound, and green building strategies can create transformative economic opportunities while addressing climate change. The prize is large. By the end of the decade, Canada could capture a significant share of up to $150 to $240 billion in the global bioeconomy market. And finally, no matter how hard we support and how hard we work to support and transform our industry, we know that in times of great change, there's likely to be some workforce adjustment. And that's why we're also launching a major new reskilling programs to ensure that hardworking people in this sector have the chance to apply their skills to new opportunities, including in that entirely new housing industry that I spoke to a moment ago. For the forest products sector alone, we will be providing $50 million in upskilling and reskilling investments, as well as support for over 6,500 lumber workers. To conclude, at this hinge moment in history, Canada is starting to shift from reliance to resilience. Together, we're going to write our own story rather than let others dictate theirs to us. We're building one Canadian economy out of 13. We're embarking on a series of nation-building projects. We're launching unprecedented investments in home building, and we are diversifying our trade partners. Throughout, we will build Canada strong with Canadian workers, Canadian technology, Canadian lumber, and Canadian values. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. In an effort to get to most of our journalists in the line here, we'll do one question, no follow-up. So we'll do about 15 minutes of questions. Première question. First question.
Good morning, almost good afternoon, Prime Minister Carney.
Thank you.
My name is Claudia Van Emmerich. I'm with Global News. My question for you is that the Trump administration has increased the general tariff rate as well as doubled tariffs on steel and aluminum, yet your government has not retaliated. How do you justify to Canadians who have voted you in to be elbows up against Trump that your government has not fired back, that you have not retaliated? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. I think the first thing to recognize is, and I said this in my remarks, but I'm going to repeat for emphasis, which is that 85% of the trade between Canada and the United States is tariff-free. That's our exports to the United States, that's U.S. exports to Canada. And we recognize that. We recognize very much the United States reaffirmation of this core element of CUSMA, or what they would call USMCA. So it's important to preserve that. It's important to reinforce that. And part of our discussions is about that. We are also very cognizant that in about 9 months from now, the first review of USMCA, CUSMA as we call it, will begin between the three parties. So there's a bigger picture there. The third thing, just from context, is we have always said that we will apply tariffs where they had the maximum impact in the United States and a minimum impact in Canada. And so we don't automatically adjust. We look at what we can do for our industry that's most effective. In some cases, that will be to remove tariffs. We have removed some tariffs over time so that, for example, the auto industry can function more effectively. And we'll look at opportunities to do so, because in the end, we're looking at having the best impact in Canada. The last point, if I may, which is what today is very much about, is we're focused on a positive agenda of building forward for our major industries, those most affected, the softwood lumber industry, clearly, steel, aluminum, other industries as well. And that agenda starts at home, being our own best customer. It goes to big investments in improving our competitiveness, upskilling, helping our workers improve their skills, and it's also diversifying trade, and that's where we're focused. Thank you.
Merci.
En français
Prochaine
également,
question.
s'il vous plaît.
On va prendre la prochaine question. Merci.
Prochaine question.
En français, si vous pouviez répéter la réponse en français.
C'est votre question ou c'est seulement
Je vais la poser en français.
Ah, oui, en
Mathis
français.
Harvey, Radio-Canada. Plusieurs premiers ministres vous ont demandé de hausser le ton, de faire preuve de plus de fermeté pour répondre à l'administration Trump. Pourquoi ne pas déjà avoir annoncé de contre-tarif là, pour répondre à cela?
Merci pour votre question. Alors, nous sommes dans la situation actuelle est que le Canada est dans la meilleure position à ce moment-ci en ce qui concerne les tarifs américains. C'est-à-dire que 85% des exportations canadiennes aux États-Unis n'ont aucun tarif américain. C'est la même pour les Américains par rapport au Canada. Alors, nous sommes dans une position d'égalité à ce moment-ci. Deuxièmement, nous sommes en train d'une négociation avec les Américains qui concerne surtout les secteurs stratégiques, le bois d'œuvre, l'acier, l'aluminium, les automobiles, la cuivre, puis les pharmaceutiques et les semi-conducteurs. Alors, ça, c'est la situation actuelle. Et nous mettons l'accent dans une manière positive de bâtir nos industries stratégiques, y compris, évidemment, le secteur de bois d'œuvre.
Prochaine question, CP, Canadian Press.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. Wolf Deppner, Canadian Press. Prime Minister, I'm still used to my old gig. Prime Minister, a number of premiers just put out a letter calling on your government to make the softwood lumber agreement a high priority. You probably saw that letter. This government here in British Columbia has asked repeatedly to treat the softwood lumber industry the way the Ontario auto industry is to be treated. What assurances can you give British Columbians and their government that your government won't sacrifice the softwood lumber industry on behalf of some sort of trade deal that would protect the auto industry in Woodbridge, Ontario?
Thank you. Well, first off, thank you for the question. I did see the letter. I read the letter. I've read it several times. I've had direct discussions with the premiers on that issue, including a long discussion with Premier Eby on the weekend, Sunday on the weekend. And just to underscore that discussion, Sunday on a long weekend, even premiers deserve a holiday. He was on his holiday and he came in to have that discussion, underscoring the importance of this industry and the importance of doing everything we can to resolve the situation. We have consistently raised the issue with our American counterparts. It's one of the elements that adds to the complexities of the negotiations we're having with them, because those who follow the trade actions over the years, and they have been over the years, decades in softwood lumber, is they are distinct but related to what the U.S. has been doing recently. These are trade actions under countervailing duties, anti-dumping. They're trade actions that Canada has challenged in court, various dispute panels, others. We win those challenges in general, and we will continue those challenges because we are not dumping softwood lumber. I would add, just for context, is that the President of the United States has signaled that there will be a 232, a strategic trade action, possibly with respect to softwood lumber as well. That brings it more into those broader discussions. So to be clear, we're not sacrificing any industry. We're working for the best deals for all our industries. And part, to bring it back to today, of getting the best deal, not just in the trade discussions with the United States, but for what really matters. The people behind me and who they represent, the workers in the industry, the businesses, the ones we can't see, the Indigenous communities that are active in the industry, all Canadians. Part of getting the best deal for them is to build the industry, is to innovate, to develop new markets, and be our own best customer. And that's what those aren't just words, we're putting behind those words $1.25 billion today of support in very specific ways to translate that into action. Thank you.
Next question, CBC.
Hi, Prime Minister Carney. Brady Strachan, CBC Kelowna. Have you spoken to Donald Trump in recent days, and will you retaliate with more counter tariffs, including on American steel, or countermeasures or lift countermeasures already in place?
Thank you for the question. I haven't spoken to the President in recent days. We'll speak when it makes sense. With respect to steel specifically, we announced a comprehensive approach on steel 2 weeks ago, which included significant support for repositioning, significant support for Buy Canadian, and with respect to, if I can draw some distinctions, with respect to softwood lumber, obviously the core of the demand domestically, not all of it, but the core of the demand, or much of the increase in demand, can be through our new approach to home building in this country. With steel, the defense procurement comes into play. The broader infrastructure investments is part of our building national projects of national significance and the requirements we'll have around those. So we had those elements there, plus some industry repositioning. So we feel, look, it's a challenging position. We have put in place a series of measures, and I would add one other thing, which I think is it's relevant. I know it's relevant for Canada, but I would submit that it's very relevant for the United States. We've also put in place the toughest measures against foreign steel that could be dumped into Canada or transshipped through Canada to other markets. So again, I just wrap that into the broader discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, please. We'll go to Kelowna Courier. Thank you.
En français, si nous avons, en ce qui concerne le secteur de l'acier, on a mis en œuvre plusieurs enjeux pendant il y a 2 semaines, y compris des subventions de soutien pour les investissements ici au Canada, les changements d'approvisionnement pour le gouvernement du Canada, surtout pour des grands projets à l'échelle nationale. Et nous avons mis en œuvre des protections tarifaires par rapport à d'autres pays qui sont en train de faire le dumping ici au Canada pour d'autres marchés.
Next question, Kelowna Courier.
Barb Aguirre, Kelowna Courier. Do you feel the U.S. under the Trump administration would honor any trade agreement that Canada could negotiate, seeing that they're a perceived unreliable trade partner?
I think this, when you're in a negotiation like this, and it's a very fluid one, you're looking for real win-win opportunities that make an agreement reinforcing. That's the first point. So, looking at those areas where the U.S., the president personally puts a very high emphasis on. So the president cares deeply about cross-border flow of fentanyl, ending the scourge of fentanyl. So do we. We are in the process of cracking down on fentanyl. We've got 1,000 more RCMP personnel coming on board. We have 1,000 more border agents. We've got better surveillance technology. We're cracking down on transnational gangs. We're doing all those things first and foremost for Canada, but actually it helps solve the issues with the United States, issues which, to be absolutely transparent, Canada is a rounding error for relative to other sources of fentanyl into that country. But that's an example where we will continue to do things in a win-win way. In the sector, in the steel sector, in the auto sector, we firmly believe, and the auto companies would absolutely reinforce this, is we are essential to the competitiveness of the American auto sector. How do we reinforce that? That's part of what we're talking about. Last point, and there's many others to make, but, and I reference this in my remark, you see these countries making commitments for investments in the United States. Canada is the second largest investor in the United States today, in the world. We have 40 million people. We are the second largest investor in the United States in the world. And that puts in context the state of the relationship, the future potential with an agreement, and some, I'm not saying all of that, but without an agreement, there will be less, by definition.
Thank you. Next question, Kelowna Now.
Good morning, Steve McNall from Kelowna Now. It was referenced here earlier today, the Peachland wildfire.
Yeah.
And it brought crystal clear again to local media how we disseminate information quickly and effectively. Bill C-18 stands in our way to get back onto Facebook and Instagram. Are the Liberals looking for an alternative or rescinding that so that we can get that news back on those important platforms?
I'll say this, Steve. Thank you for the question. First thing, and one of the things that we have done, and I'll answer your specific question, but let me make a point on something we have done, which is, and you may not like this part of the answer, but I'm going to give it to you, which is that one of the roles of CBC Radio Canada is to provide unbiased, immediate, local information, particularly in terms of in situations such as you're referring to. And that's one of the reasons why we've made the commitment to invest and reinforce and actually change the governance of CBC Radio Can to ensure that they are providing those essential services. Now, to your specific question, I personally, and this government is a big believer in the value of what you do. I'm going to use you as a representation on local news, and the importance of ensuring that that is disseminated as widely and as quickly as possible. So we will look for all avenues to do that, and I understand your question, and it's part of our thinking around that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the last question. Castanet, dernière question.
Thank you. Cindy White from Castanet. You talked about acting as one instead of 13. Alberta, the ad valorem tax that they slapped on our wine and other imports. What are you doing about that, and how do you pull people into line? You can't act as one if you have a breakaway province.
Well, let me say a couple of things. First, with respect to the wine industry in British Columbia, one of the most remarkable transformations over the course of the 50 years that I've been coming here, the level of innovation, the quality, the competition, the ideas, the hospitality, all of that is remarkable. Every Canadian deserves to benefit from the innovation here, just as people in British Columbia deserve to benefit from the Niagara, or Nova Scotia or Quebec or any of the other provinces where wine is produced. And I think this is actually one of the tests of some of the provincial, because your question goes to provincial barriers and frictions. There have been, to their credit, a series of provincial agreements or MOUs, memorandums of understanding, intentions, statement of intent to free up trade between the provinces. The federal government has taken a number of actions. We've legislated to remove all our barriers. And as First Ministers, Prime Minister, and the Premiers, we need to work together to translate those commitments into action so that tangible things, such as wine, is moving friction-free across the borders, and so that many other elements of our economy that are less tangible and won't make the headlines are doing as well. And finally, but it starts with this, so that people can move freely across borders and practice their professions without requalifying. So it's a top priority. I appreciate the question. It's part of a bigger picture, and we're gonna keep focused on it.
Thank you so much. This puts an end to our press conference. C'est ce qui met fin à notre conférence de presse.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you.